to the Heart of Business podcast, sponsored by International Facilitators Organization. I'm your host, Mo Fatalbab, and today our guest is Yuval Yeret, scaling and agility coach, a seasoned facilitator, a leadership coach, and one of our new IFO certified facilitators. Welcome, Yuval.
Thank you, Mo. Great to be here.
Great to have you with us. So, Yuval, I want to just get a sense of your career journey and what inspired you to get into this type of work in the first place.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it over the last couple of days, preparing for this podcast. You could say that I've been focused on tweaking systems forever. I've been tweaking computer operating systems for, since I was a teenager. In parallel to that, I was typing up my mom's psychology, papers. Those were the days where a lot of people didn't know how to type. So I got exposed to some very deep Freud, psychology work just by typing it in. So got some psychology injected along the way. Over the years, after spending some years in technology and tweaking operating systems and networks, I took on more and more leadership roles in technology organizations and engineering organizations. And I started to weave in tweaking organizational systems, not just technology. I started to write organizational code more than software code. And at some point, I realized that I was really passionate about organizational code and started to do more work in the domain of agility and scaling organizations, and became more of a practitioner in that space, helping other leaders do that. And what you encounter very quickly when you start to work on scaling organizations and tweaking organizational code is that, there are people that operate that code. And in order to get people to move, you need to facilitate conversations. And you need to facilitate those conversations when you're leading people directly and when you're consulting them and helping them from outside. And even those conversations are conversations that, you can tweak. There are different things that you can do to make those conversations work better. There are protocols that you can use. There are things you can do to make conversations horrible if you don't pay close attention to it. And there are beautiful things that you can do to make conversations better. So that's sort of been my journey over the years. And I feel like spending time in investing in my facilitation chops has been something that I need to focus on in parallel to growing my knowledge and expertise in other areas. So that's brought me to you, to IFO.
It's all great stuff, and I have so many questions. So the first is, do you remember any lessons from typing these psychology papers for your mom, and in what context and what kind of work did she do with psychology?
She focused on kids, on the psyche of kids and early age. Do I really remember? Not too much, to be honest. Yeah. I feel like it's somewhere in the background there, but and I, some days I have the inkling to go and look up some of those things. They're not even in formats that we can open these days. Word processors from the ancient past. But that's who she was. She was, a psychological analyst. She was training others, supervising others. Even if I remember some of those things, I probably shouldn't talk about them.
So, I'll tell you one interesting link we both have. I also took a typing class, influenced by the fact that I noticed that those classes have more women than men. But that was me in high school trying to find my way. So the other thing you said that was interesting to me is that you learned how to make conversations better. So what are some of the things you learned in terms of what it takes to make conversations better?
Conversations, one of the key things, and I recall where I was listening to that book, The Five Dysfunctions of a Team, is a book
Yes,
by Lencioni. It's a book that really
I love
made
it.
an impact on me. I was VP engineering at the time for a struggling, technology startup. The CEO, which I'm still in touch with, and myself, we're trying to figure out, okay, what are we doing there? And beyond the practical challenges of, do we have a product market fit? And, can we really turn this around with everything going on? The leadership team was really struggling. And I don't remember how I got to reading or listening, in that case, to Lencioni, but I did. And I listened to his book. I couldn't put it down. I was on vacation in, on the French Riviera coast, and I was listening to the book all the time. And, the base of what you need to do is to build vulnerability-based trust. And we've seen that on our team. We had
Yeah.
a team that didn't really trust each other. People, didn't even see each other face to face. It was a coupling of people that never really got together. And because we didn't have that trust, because we didn't really connect to each other on a human basis, it was very hard to make decisions. It was very hard to have the tough conversations that we needed to have. So for me, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert in, vulnerable conversations are hard. But I realize how important it is to go into the fire and have some of those vulnerable conversations, and the beautiful bonding and speed that you can get to really try things after you get to these sort of teams is something that I still remember. I still try to bring to whatever context I can.
Yeah. So first I gotta tell you, when I first read that book, I was like, oh my God, this is like perfect. And oh, I wish I'd written this because this so resonates with my work philosophy and everything I'd learned in working with peer groups and forums back at the Entrepreneurs Organization at the time. I'm curious if you remember more specifically how you built or created that vulnerability, what tools you might have used. It was a long time ago, and you were in the
It was
French
a long
Riviera.
time ago. I think I can tell you what works for me these days. So a lot of the work that I do these days is about helping organizations, helping leadership teams fix some scaling issues, fix, an organization that is stuck with its current ways of working, and they need to work on their organization.
Yeah.
And those are tough decisions to make. Those are tough changes for an organization. So the first trick is get people together and actually do food. Esther Derby calls that pattern, do food.
Mm.
Whatever it is, even if it's, just cookies or a meal or whatever, be together with people, especially in this day and age of, AI and remote. Make the effort to be together. There's nothing that beats, this environment of we're having some eye-to-eye conversations. We can see the white in each other's eye and discuss stuff. So for me, that's like the starting point.
Break bread.
What's that? Break
Break
bread.
bread.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. So this really starts to explain to me your interest in working with IFO and becoming an IFO certified facilitator. But I'd love to hear from you what led you to want to do that.
Yeah. So there were two things. The one is hearing from a couple of good friends, what the forum experience at YPO has been for them. I would almost say life-changing, it seems, from what I hear from some people, from those people.
Yeah.
And I was both feeling FOMO, fear of missing out on
Yeah.
some great life-changing stuff. But I also started to think that what I heard from them about the conversations that are happening, the kind of intimacy that is created, the sharing experiences rather than providing advice, all of these things kind of resonated for me with some of the things that I've been both trying to change in how I show up as an advisor to people, rather than telling people exactly what to do. How do you do that in a way that is more helpful to them? But also that in my work with leadership teams and within organizations, there's the potential for the peer groups approach that is used in YPO and EO to actually bring that into organizations. So those two reasons, got together, amplified each other, and there I was.
Yeah. So just for those listening and watching, YPO is the Young Presidents Organization. It is an organization that has 38,000 members around the world. And Forum, these peer groups, are their number one member benefit. And they are life-changing. And it is why I do this work. And we've done this work with many organizations from Google to Harvard Business School alumni. And really, our goal is to spread this much, much larger scale and have it be something that's available and accessible to anyone. Because in YPO, you have to be the president or CEO of a company. And we started IFO to really create access to everybody and to train Jedi facilitators like Yuval to be able to carry out this work so we could make these moments of connection and vulnerability to enable people to have healthy and functional organizations and support and to learn and grow together. So Yuval, you're speaking my language. So something else you touched on, which may not be so obvious to so many people listening. What is the big deal about speaking from experience instead of giving advice? And how have you seen that play out?
So the natural inclination for a lot of us is when somebody shares a challenge,
Yeah.
to say, this is what you should do.
Yeah.
So if I came to you, Mo, and I said, Mo, I need some more connection. Let's say I feel like I need to make more connections to help me look at growth. One way you could show up and you say, Yuval, I know where you're coming from. This is what you should do. You should go seek a mastermind, or go join an organization, whatever. And while you're trying to help me, there's something in the psychology here, which is that I didn't come up with the suggestion where it would probably be better if you show up in a more neutral way. You want to help me, but you don't know what's really good for me. How do you know all of my context? How do you know whether I should actually go join a mastermind? What you can share is that this is what helped you in a similar context. I've been there, or I've been in a similar place. This is my experience. I am in my experience, in my specific experience here, I joined a mastermind group and it helped me in such a way. Now I have options. I have freedom to choose. What we learn is that people thrive when they have autonomy to choose their own, their own direction.
It's empowering. Yeah.
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 When they have agency. Sharing experiences rather than advice leaves people with agency for what they choose to do.
I love that word, agency. Say more about that, because it's one of those words that I think is underused, so to speak. I think vulnerability in some ways has become overused. It's interesting. Before that word was even in my dictionary, we were practicing vulnerability to really create these connections, right? Patrick Lencioni says trust. Trust is the first rung on that pyramid of his. But really, vulnerability has become this big word, but agency is a little bit more new to a lot of folks. Say more about agency.
So for me, agency is about autonomy, mastery, like you choose your path. That for me is agency. You have reasonable space to make decisions, even in the workplace, where you could say, people are within boundaries, there's the hierarchy, there's, what's your position, what you need to do. What I found in my work on what helps organizations scale is that you need to find the right containers, the right boundaries that give people enough space, enough agency, peoples and teams enough agency to figure out how to do the work with clarity. It's important to have clarity about why, but to figure out where we go. When you talk about individuals in a peer group, it's even more important to have agency, because otherwise, who is it that would tell you what you need to do with your life and with your work? You should have agency for your career and where you go and the choices that you make. And the conversations that we structure, and I would say all of what happens around people, should be structured to enable agency. Yeah. So there are a lot of things around us that don't really give us agency, that tell us this is what you go and do, whether it's based on biases or whatever. But at the minimum, in the conversations that we have with people, we can empower them through agency.
Another way I think about it is maybe even the belief that I have the agency to change my circumstance.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah. So another byproduct I've seen personally of these wonderful forums and peer groups is connecting people that may not otherwise have connected, connecting people that may otherwise think they're different. But the more I get to know people at a deeper level in these groups, the more I realize, it doesn't really matter on the outside how you come across, or what you're labeled as, or what religion you are, or where you come from. Because when you see the humanity in folks, at the end of the day, we all have very similar challenges, whether it be, relationships with our parents or our kids, or struggling professionally or concerns about our health or finances. Have you seen those things play out in your work?
Yeah, I mean, going back to in my experience, there's another benefit to it. If I give you advice and tell you should go, I mean, if you tell me, Yuval, go to a mastermind, that doesn't really tell me anything about you and what's going on for you.
Yeah.
But if you tell me, I've been in a space and I've had these challenges and this is what I've done, then I know much more about what's going on for you.
Yes.
And it's an opportunity to connect at a much, much deeper level. So,
yeah. Is there a moment, Yuval, in your life where you had this realization to make the shift yourself, where maybe you had been giving advice or somebody gave you advice and it didn't work and you saw a negative impact and then you made a change to do things differently?
I would say it's not a binary switch. It's been something that I've been working on for decades. And it's a journey. I'm not there yet. But I hope that every year my style is a bit more of sharing experiences rather than telling people what to do. Sometimes it's, giving options.
Yeah.
Like in my work these days, I'm talking about making the switch from a roadmap or a blueprint to a trail map, inspired by going skiing in the winter. You get a trail map. It doesn't tell you what to do throughout the day once you come to the ski resort, but it gives you some ideas where to go. There are even these honest trail maps where people share their experience and what are the places that they really like about the mountain, where they don't like, where all of the newbies huddle. So that's a nice trail map to use. And I'm trying, even though my role is to actually advise people, and help them make choices, and even teach them sometimes new techniques. How do I switch at least some of my language to more of an advice language? As part of that, every, let's say, 2 or 3 years or so, I re-listen to Shine's Helping, which, reminds me, how to show up and how not to show up. If anybody is interested in, how to help people without telling them, that would be my first, recommendation, what to go read, by the way.
I love it. Yuval, who's one person that's influenced you? Maybe a role model, somebody you've looked up to, or somebody that's changed the way you do things in this world, or affected how you do things in this world.
The tough one.
We ask tough questions. That's part of
I know. I've had many people that probably influenced me, but I can't really say that there's like one sun that overshines the others, to be honest.
Yeah.
It will be forcing it, saying,
No, we don't want you
something specific.
And look, I love your answer because I think too often we're just tempted to want to say the right thing, but you're staying with your truth. You're like, hey, many people, not just one person, and I think that's really just important and part of the values, our transparency, our being real, and not just giving an answer that seems to placate the question, so to speak. So last question, what are you most inspired or looking forward to in a couple of years ahead? What's next for you?
I want to I want to figure out a way to bring what I've learned about peer groups and how to facilitate them to my work. And I'm exploring a couple of different ways to do that. One is I feel like beyond my work with specific organizations, I would love to create a peer group of leaders, the sort of leaders that I work with one-on-one, day in and day out, get them together and, give them an opportunity to connect to people in similar contexts, maybe different contexts, share experiences, learn from each other. I'm really looking forward to something like that, and I'm just trying to figure out how to make that work. That's definitely one. I am trying to figure out within organizations that I work with that have many people that are peers trying to go through complex change, whether the change is adopting more agile, empowering ways of working, or learning how to live with the new Gen AI overlords. Whatever it is, it's complex change that people could benefit from going through together and tackling and discussing together. It might be, that they don't have a lot of direct experiences to share because nobody has actually gone through an AI transformation yet. But I was having this, I was helping a peer group have this conversation a couple of weeks ago. And, even though there's no direct experience with something, there's relevant experience in other things. So people could still share experiences of something that happened to them that they think is relevant. So finding the way to structure these conversations and leverage peer groups as part of how I help organizations go through change is something else that I'm really trying to figure out.
Love it. Love it. Yuval, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. You can follow the Heart of Business podcast wherever you get your podcast. Also, podcast reviews have a real impact on the podcast visibility. So if you enjoyed today's podcast, leave a review to help others find the show. Finally, you can find all our episodes on our website at internationalfacilitatorsorganization.com. Thank you for listening and have a great day.